excited to have this packed house at Luminary with our friend and partner Cate Luzio to host our first ever lunch chat with Madeline and Geena. I want to thank you all, especially the New York members who are here today, who have submitted so many incredible questions for Geena and Madeline to respond to today. I think we received 5 pages typed, single space of questions, so it's going to, we're going to address as many as we possibly can. And if we can get to others later on, we may be able to do that. I also want to thank Jasmine Borad, who has been amazing. She's our event director. And Jasmine has done a wonderful job just pulling this event and all of our New York events together. And we look to, to the Luminary folks as well to grow our community. And with that, I'm keeping my remarks incredibly short. Thank you again, and we look forward to today. So here's Case.
Well, good afternoon. I love when we have a crowd that actually speaks back. Sometimes at night times we get because everybody's got the wine going, but I think it's midday and you've all just eaten a little bit, so you're excited. I'm very excited that we have Geena and Madeline here. We actually, very briefly, I'm Cate Luzio. I'm the founder and CEO here at Luminary. Thank you for the and we are really excited to partner with the Institute. This is our second event that we've done. We had the opportunity in July to host an event, collaborative event with Luminary members and the Institute, and premiered a private screening of This Changes Everything, which was an incredible movie, impactful, and I'm going to ask a little bit about it during the chat, but I would really encourage, if you haven't seen it, you must. And you must encourage all of your friends to see it and your coworkers, regardless if you work in media and entertainment. As a former 20-year banker, it was so hugely impactful just to see what's happening in that particular industry and how it's probably happening, and we know it is, in all industries, and how one voice can make a change. So with no further ado, as Mary Ellen mentioned, we did get 5 pages of pre-submitted questions. Those of you that sent 3-part questions, I probably will not be asking those, but it is great to see such engagement. But I'm going to start with a little bit of background, and I'm going to turn it over to Geena to talk about. A lot of people know about this, but why was this so important to you to start this research, to start the Institute, and why is it now driving you so much? And again, welcome to both of you for being here.
Thank you. We're very happy to be here. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Push out, right? Maybe I did actually do something. Thank you all very much for coming. It's really thrilling to see so many people here. And so it all started when my daughter was a toddler, and I sat down with her for the first time to show her a preschool show on TV. And I immediately noticed that there were far more male characters than female characters in something made for toddlers. And it occurred to me, and then, subsequently saw movies and videos and all kinds of things that were very male skewed. And it occurred to me, as a mother in the 21st century, surely by now we should be showing kids that boys and girls share the sandbox equally. And what are we doing? We're starting them off, teaching them gender bias. We're training them from minute one to see that girls are less valuable to our society than men and boys. So, but I didn't intend to start a whole, institution or anything about it in the beginning, but I take everything too far. But I started just asking colleagues in the industry, whenever I had a meeting or whatever, I'd say, have you ever noticed how few female characters there are in entertainment made for kids? And every single person said, well, no, that's not true anymore. That's been fixed. And they were very sincere about it, too. They were not saying, oh, well, it's fine. They were like, we care about that here. It's our number one objective. We just, and we made, and they often name a movie with one female character as proof that gender inequality was over. So I was like, wow, I think I need to
Gender
get...
equality is over. That it's fixed.
Yes, it's fixed. That's what I mean. Yes, it's fixed. And so that's when I decided I should get the data, because they don't. I mean, what seems so glaringly obvious to me, creators of that entertainment couldn't see. So that's what happened. And the whole point of getting the data was not to educate the public, but to go directly to the creators. Since I could probably get a meeting with people, share it with them privately, say, I don't think you know what's going on, but here's what you make looks like, and try to change things that way. It sort of cut out the middleman. People could not even know that there was a problem, but as long as it got fixed, it was okay. So it has proved to be really, really effective, and the absolute consistent reaction of people that hear the data is they are horrified. They are stunned beyond belief, because they had no idea that they were doing this, and people who make, that's a big advantage for us, is that people who make kids entertainment do it because they love kids. And so when they hear they're not doing right by half of kids, they're appalled. So that's how
So it started with your toddler, and it's kind of really, in an amazing way, snowballed into this. You've created a whole movement and an institute around it. But at some point, did you also say, clearly this is not just about kids, and look back at your career and say, let me look at the movies that I've participated in, or the TV shows. Obviously, you were a president at one point, and which is pretty amazing. So did you reflect upon that in your career as well, and look at your network and say, we haven't done enough? It started with now you've started with the kids, but you looked at your career and where some of these characters in these movies, again, because in the movie, and this changes everything, I mean, the dissection of everyone from who's sitting in, who's the actress to who's behind the camera.
How dare you?
How dare you?
My background is flawless. Just because I was in my underwear in the first movie, I don't know what you're implying, but no, absolutely. I mean, yeah, absolutely. And and I have to say, with the advent of Me Too and Time's Up, that really caused me to think back on, well, wait a minute, has any of that stuff ever happened to me? And I realized, in every situation,
of course.
In everything. So yeah, that's definitely
Part of it.
Part of it, yeah.
And Madeline, what encouraged you? I mean, you've had such a great career too before you got involved. What was it about this movement that got you involved in? And Madeline's the CEO of the Institute, and we've had her here speak too, so it's great to have you back. But what really encouraged you to kind of get involved and want to help lead this?
So I think we all go through certain epiphanies, and I've had two. One was when I decided I wanted to go back to entertainment, and that led me to be recruited by Universal and leave New York, because you could tell I'm from New York and New Jersey, and move to California. That was epiphany number one. Epiphany number two was, after spending 30 years in the entertainment industry, I thought, can I use my power for good? Which sounds ridiculous, but I thought, let me go on this exploration. I was the only person in Hollywood who wanted to leave and work for nonprofit. People thought I'd lost my mind. And so I started consulting for one big organization, but there wasn't a job there. And then in parallel with that, Geena decided that she wanted to take the work to the next level. And Jerry Laybourne, who we all know and love, suggested that she hire like a real recruiter. And Geena dug in, because the fiscal sponsor at the time were like, no, you don't need to do that, you don't need to do this. She's like, no, I need to do this. So make a long story short, I'm the only person in Hollywood who wants to work for a nonprofit. So I was still on a BlackBerry, right? So this is, it was 2008. And I see this recruiter Franca Virgili say blah, 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 CJ, blah, 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 blah. And I just handed the phone to my husband, and I'm like, I tend to read the verbs really quickly. I'm like, read this carefully. What does he say? He goes, that's the job you want. So to make a long story short, I mean, Geena was inundated with thousands of just fabulous resumes. And so, how'd you feel when you met me?
They narrowed it down to 3 candidates after their exhaustive search, so I met them one by one, and the first one came in and was so impressive. Oh my God, because I thought it was going to be impossible to find somebody with sufficient industry experience and sufficient nonprofit experience. And she was amazing. And then the second one came in. Oh my God, she's amazing too. I can't go wrong here. And then Madeline came in, and it was like, what was I thinking? She was so prepared. She had stacks of printouts and outlines of things that she'd written, white papers about everything, and I was like, oh my God, yes. So she's
And I said, what do you want? And what did you say?
World domination. And you said, I'm mad for your job. Yes.
Amazing. So let's. I want to talk a little bit about the movie because it was a long time coming and creating that. One of the things that struck me in the movie, and I want you both to kind of give your perspective, was the history of where women were, and starting with the kids, but where women were, again, whether they were in front of the camera, behind the camera, and the FX really hit me hard because the woman, and I can't remember her name, called him out in Variety magazine and said, FX, you weren't doing this, you'd have no women, right? And so very quickly, the CEO of FX said,
John Landgraf.
They're right. This is right. This data is right. And then they fast forward and said, now they've got all these Emmy nominations and how much they changed. So outside of that one that was in the movie, what are you seeing as far as change? Again, whether it's in front or behind the camera, because you're not just saying, women need more roles, you're proving it with information and data, which so many people forget, that is how you get people to change a mindset.
Right, except in certain cases where it doesn't, because if you look at the problem with female directors, which is horrific, they have known, everybody in the town has known the numbers for decades, and that has never made anybody say, what? What are we doing? I'm so shocked. We have to do better. Although being called out caused John Landgraf, I'm sure he didn't realize that he was.
He didn't know.
What they were very low or the lowest on the list, and that shocked him and was incredibly motivating to him. I mean, he just absolutely turned things around, and there were people like of course I'm spacing J.J. Abrams, who he has made it a policy that for every role they have to read men and women and all types of diversity for his movies. So that's really and Brian Murphy and with his organization Half and all that. So there are pockets. Also, I like to point out that Disney announced, Bob Iger announced a few months ago that for their upcoming slate of films, 40% of the directors will be female. So the contrast between 4% for everybody else and 40% for Disney is, huge. But they just made a decision. We're doing this.
We're doing it.
But the thing that Geena doesn't take credit enough for it, but she pioneered the field of research on gender and media. And as she was saying, everyone's known for decades the behind the camera, but no one knew about on-screen, which is the easiest thing to fix because it's make-believe, it's fiction. So that was something that everybody can fix at all different touch points. And the big news, when you were saying, the big news that we announced last September, which was really exciting. We updated our television research on kids' TV made for them,
And for the first time, we have reached parity in the lead characters in kids television.
Wow. For gender.
For gender.
So the thesis works, our theory of change works, and because we don't shame and blame, we work collaboratively. We have many of our partners in the room today, and it works because people do want to do the right thing.
I think it's holding them accountable and calling them out, right? I mean, the FX is a great example. He didn't want to be called out and seen as and again, like you said, he might not have known to the extent, but when you show you're not willing to sit down and take it anymore. I mean, you just look at what's happening last week in banking with Goldman Sachs saying we're no longer going to IPO someone that doesn't have a female on their board, right? Again, showing data does help, and I think change can happen when the top believes in it and actually does something. Let's talk a little bit about the Institute. I don't want to get statistics wrong, so I'm going to have to go to the notes. 2009 was a groundbreaking year, not only because it produced 10 studies, which was double the number you did in 2018, but because there were several historical findings revealed by the research. The work that you've done over the past year, why is it so revolutionary from what you were doing? Because the Institute's been around for 15 years. 15 years Geena's been doing this, and little by little making change. So to hear from that toddler that you had, 15 years later there's actually parity, really is because of you. No one had raised it. No, but I mean, to Madeline's point, no one had raised it.
I'd say, yes. So the thing for us is, I would say, we've gone from being data-driven advocates to data-driven interventionists. And the intervention part of it really came about when we received the technology grant from Google, and we got into the AI machine learning of it and created our tools, which many of our partners are now using. And that was definitely a shift. Also, what we have found is over the past 5 years, every single major brand and content creator have become what I call organizationally ready. So the idea of diversity and inclusion has been around, but the focus was mostly workplace environment, and those jobs sat in the CSR departments and HR departments. And what we've seen is those people are now at an enterprise level, and they're in each of the business units, and they are now charged with external messaging, content. And so therefore, they need to do this not on the back of an envelope. And so where we have found that we can intersect and provide a potential intervention is with some of our machine learning tools, and that kind of shifted for us.
Definitely, yeah, and we get to be like scientists now. We used to talk about that stuff, but it's very exciting, and the GDIQ was the first tool that allowed us to measure screen time and speaking time, which I felt was always so important. I really wanted to know, and it's abysmal. Just like the numbers, they're also on screen far less and speak far less. But now we have a new tool which we're training to have a wide application. But we're calling it spell check for bias, and it reads scripts or manuscripts, whatever, and you just put the script in, and you can get this stuff, the information that you need about what's contained in there before you make it, before you cast it, even before you greenlight it or option it. You can tell what you have, and so that's always been my point, is that we need people to do a gender and diversity pass before they make something. Just before you make it, just go through.
And is that live now?
We're testing now.
So I hope they don't mind me calling them out, but our first pilot partner is in the room, Drew Reed with Disney Fox, who stepped up to the plate, and they're taking the journey with us, and So we have a human coding team led by Dr. Caroline Heldman, who's working with our machine learning team led by Dr. Sri Narayan at USC Viterbi School of Engineering. And so we have the two teams working because the point is to automate this. So it's really quick, it's really fast, and whoever's putting eyes on messaging, whether it's an ad brief, a manuscript, a script, can get 10 little things that they want to know. Gender, speaking time, dialogue. Is a character identified for LGBTQ? Is a character identified for disabilities? Is a character not identified at all, but they have some dialogue? Well, that could be a packaging casting opportunity. And so we hope that this process can be embedded and go along with whatever notes, creative, whatever decision making. We don't want to mess with your story. We don't want to tell people what to do, and help everyone be organizationally ready, because we know all of our partners, really want to do well. And the biggest thing for Geena is talk about the whole background character thing, because it's not just about the top of the call sheet.
Right. No, absolutely. And I think that's what, when I first spoke to people and they said, no, it's gender balanced, I think they were just thinking about the lead character.
Sure.
So Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is gender balanced.
Yeah.
Well, because they're short, they add one person. But so, yeah, that's what I wanted to know. And that's what really struck me when I first was watching these kids' entertainments was, what's the world made up of?
Yeah.
What is the world that they live in? And most of it is fictional. It could be anything you want, and still. Practically all males. So I wanted to know who the occupants of the world was, and I've always wanted to know about the extras, the non-speaking characters, the crowd scenes and the group scenes and everything, which was impossible for somebody with a naked eye to count, and so the tool is learning how to do that now.
So can I put you on the spot?
Yes, you may.
Okay, so Drew, right?
Yes.
So why did you guys jump on board with this? Like, why was it important to Disney Fox?
Hi, good afternoon. I think it's a lot of what you were saying before. As a worldwide provider of family content, we want to get it right. And like you said, it's not. We're looking forward to working with you. I work with a group in New York that covers the publishing industry, and we look for books and manuscripts, great stories that we can adapt for animation, live action, etc. And it's really interesting that I've been doing this for 30 years, and when I started, something that would be often said from Hollywood, not this company, my previous employers, girls will go see a boy movie, but boys will not go see a girl movie. And I experienced all of that change when Frozen came along. Suddenly, and so we're thrilled, my group and I are thrilled to be working for Disney and at a company that wants to have these conversations. Do you know, other companies, I'm not surprised John was called out a little. I don't know that these conversations typically happen, and so I think it's fantastic. We came from 20th Century Fox, we've merged now with Disney. We're inside this environment where these conversations are happening, and we're excited that there's something very practical here. It's one thing to subjectively read a piece of material and say, I think this, I think that, but we're soon going to have hard data. It's going to be amazing. Thank you.
It's great. I think it's really important that men are at the table hearing these conversations too. It's not just women driving it, right?
Well, speaking of men,
Yeah.
he's going to kill me, but I want to put Dale Green on the spot, who's our partner with Mars, who worked with on GDIQ. So thank you, Dale, for being here.
This is what happens at Luminary, sorry.
I was explaining earlier, it's quite interesting. My epiphany was actually at the Unstereotype Alliance. And I went along to that, and it's probably the first event I've been to where I was the minority. I'm middle-aged, white, British, you can tell, heterosexual, and yeah, it was a real strange feeling that I'd never experienced before, which all you guys do. And I think it's important because until people like me clock it and own it, we're not going to change things. So, yeah, that's why I'm here.
Amazing. So I do want to get to the questions that were submitted, and if we have some in the audience, which I know we will. Two kind of last questions. You mentioned scientists, and I'm just going to ask a show of hands. Does everyone know what the CSI effect is? Show of hands. So Geena, because I was sharing a story that in my former life as a baker, Geena spoke at an event, and she was talking about the research that the Institute was doing, and was talking all about the CSI effect. And we was all women in the room, all bankers, and everyone's sort of like shaking their head. And I learned about the CSI effect, which I think is, again, so tremendous. And so when you said scientists, so can you talk a little bit about what is happening? And again, just from what you're putting out there from a research standpoint, and putting more women on screen in not the funny sidekick role or sexy sidekick, but actually the lead role.
Right, absolutely. We learn what we can do through what we see people do. That person looks like me and they're doing that incredible thing, maybe I can too. And there's just so much evidence now that what they see on screen impacts what their aspirations. And there's the CSI effect. We also studied the Scully effect for Vox, which was crazy because we found that, what was it? 63% of women who are working in STEM now cited Scully as their motivator.
63%.
63%.
Yes.
This is one character.
Wow.
And more than half of women working in STEM cite that specific person. So it's crazy. Another fun thing we learned was that we studied archery, because I used to shoot arrows, but...
You did? Were you in the Olympics?
But my archery coach said he noticed that on the graphs of participation, it was always men, boys, women, and girls way at the bottom. And in 2012, the girls' line shot up 105%. It became the most populated category. And that was the year that Brave and Hunger Games both came out.
Oh my gosh.
And girls left the theater and bought a bow.
Wow.
It was instant. The line went straight
Unbelievable.
up. Yeah. So, I mean, it just shows what impact this can have.
Absolutely. So what can we, I know I was talking to Mary Ellen and Madeline and Jasmine last week, but I know you've got some research coming out, but what can we expect to see from you guys in 2020, and any sneak peeks?
I'd say we'll probably make a big announcement in about 30 days. We have another big announcement coming in about a week with another partner. And I think this year, between our own research and some of our partner research, we're probably going to have close to 10 studies coming out this year. We're looking at sizeism, we're looking at ageism. We have our first masculinity study, which is coming out, Boys in TV, which is funded by Caring in partnership with Promundo, kind of the flip side. So we have a lot of really exciting work. And of course, we're excited with our partnership with Drew and our partnership with Dale and Mars. So we have a lot.
So you have to come back.
We will.
Right? So I want to get to some of the 5 pages of questions that were submitted, but Geena just received her 2nd Oscar, right? Incredible. And the Oscars are in 2 weeks. And there were a lot of snubs, right, on the directors, right, things like this we all can talk about, but you receiving this, can you tell us how that made you feel, and talk about what it's for?
It's the Jean Hersholt Humanitarian Award, and it's for this, basically.
It's for this.
I didn't know you could get an Oscar for something other than, your
Being
job.
But you've made this your life's work for 15 years. How old are your kids now?
My twin boys are 15 and my daughter's 17.
So how do they see this, right? Especially as they've grown up with a mom that was in TV and film and now changing the world domination.
Yeah, they are perfect. They are the most woke people. No, but what I did with them from the beginning, from when I first noticed that, was I would watch with them. I wanted them to see the stuff that other kids see, you know, but I would watch with them and make comments, like be their media literacy coach. And so I'd say, did you notice that there's only boys in that group? Why do you think girls can do that? I mean, what do you think? Why do you think she's wearing that if she's going to go rescue somebody? And they are completely. In fact, now I'm sure they must hate to go to movies with me. But if I even start to lean over this, I notice, Mom, there's not enough girls in that scene.
Her skirt's a little too short, Mom. Yeah. Okay, so we've got a bunch of questions that were submitted. So again, I don't want to misrepresent. Jill O'Sullivan, who's in the audience and has a little girl, 5.5-year-old, and soon to be having another, we don't know yet. But I'd be interested in knowing when Geena first realized she had a platform as a public figure from which you could influence others.
Well, I think in this case it was realizing that I could go directly to the people I wanted to impact, that I should take advantage of that, because then that's a direct route. It's not, you know, I mean, if I was taking the cause on and trying to educate the public and then they will pick it or, you know, whatever. But this could, and it would also fit my personality, which is not really incredibly, you know, confrontational, let's say. I like to work with people and be you know, genial, collaborative. So that's how it happened.
That's it. And then you have the direct line. I mean, you're in a position of power, which is incredible because not everybody has that. And again, you go back to the movie. By the way, where can we find and see the movie for those people that didn't see it?
So it's on Stars, and it's on Amazon, and it's on iTunes. So
Soon to be on Perflix.
oh, good, thanks, Sandra. How are you? Yeah. So good to see you.
Yeah, I'll send it to you and then everybody
send it out.
get
Okay, great. And then it's still opening up internationally around the world. It's opening up, I think, in France in February. So for our caring friends who are in the room, here they are. Yeah.
Okay, Joan Monk, how do we encourage women and girls to be collaborative rather than competitive, which is something we talk about here often at Luminary? Collaboration over competition.
Well, you know, Madeline Albright has that great saying that there's a special place in hell for women who won't help women. And I think that's definitely a credo to live by. But I personally, I've been very lucky, and I personally haven't had that kind of, you know, scenario. But when you look at generations that came before us, there was one female lawyer, there was one female executive, and they had to work 10 times as hard just to get to that position, and then they had to hold on to it. So I think, you know, when you look at the, you know, the shoulders that we stand on, and you could speak to it from banking, I think, you know, that's kind of where that came from. Hopefully, you know, we're not really experiencing that now. I don't know if you want to say anything about that.
Right. Well, I sometimes have a little problem with this, with the general concept that women don't get along, because I think they profoundly do and can be incredibly collaborative. So I don't want to make it easy for people to tar women as being, they're just competitive and they don't support each other, because, I mean, look at us. And it was so interesting when I made League of Their Own and women, and a lot of reporters came to the set to talk to us, and every single one said, so is there a lot of cat fighting between the women? And shut up. No, dinosaur. Okay, boomer.
Okay, Alana Raya, who is also doing incredible things for young girls as they're growing up. His question is, what can girls our age do to help with your mission to make TV and movies look more like our actual friend groups? So as an example, more girls from everywhere, from an ethnic perspective, but more kids with disabilities, more women in grown-up roles. How can we tell the movie companies that we want this versus just the Institute? How can we help?
Oh, because I was going to say donating to us would actually help.
That's great. There you go. That's great. That's one way. Yeah.
But really, I mean, this is what's, well, there's good news, bad news about social media, but the good news is, and as long as they're 13 and older, you can use your voice on social media because all of these companies are paying attention. And as you've seen, and it's been demonstrated with a lot of brands who haven't been authentic or people who haven't been authentic, they're all watching, and you can really make your voice heard and make your voice global. So definitely the use of social media, or have your mom do your social media for you if you're under the age of 13. So absolutely.
And there's an amazing opportunity to donate to, so that this research can, because then the research can continue, and the partnerships and the corporate partnerships, because that's where the money is, and we have to continue to doing that, right? And this kind of comes to that. So Gabriella Mirabella asked about, studies have shown that films made with female leads have outperformed those with male leads. Have you broken this down further? And examples meaning, does this vary across distribution platforms, streaming versus theatrical, format or genre, film versus TV, dramas versus comedy, diversity, does that play a part?
All of the above. So we have the Geena benchmark report, which looks at the decade before. And what we found is when we looked at 2008 to 2018, that female-centric films performed 55% more at the box office, but we did find that films with co-leads, a person of color, and Caucasians did the most amount of money. And then when you look at the TV programming side and then the advertising side, so on the advertising side, advertisers have realized that if they place diverse and inclusive, appropriate advertising in pods next to diverse and appropriate placed programming, they'll sell more stuff. And and then on the streaming and the TV side, we and Nielsen, we probably have some Nielsen partners in the room. Nielsen is a donor, has really put their money where their mouth is. All of our TV data comes from Nielsen. It's because of Nielsen and us being such a pain in the butt to them that we kept asking them for more and more and more TV data. So we went all the way back to 2008, and we saw that the trend for the gender parity started in 2011, and that's where we were finally able to make that announcement last September at Google. So there's a lot of correlation, but TV just always has performed better, in terms of race, LGBTQ, disabilities, gender. They've always been ahead of the game.
Always ahead. So how many of you in this movie love A League of Their Own? I mean, one of my favorite quotes that I still use on my brothers is, "There's no crying in baseball." I mean, there's no crying. So Mimi, who also, who's one of our members, said A League of Their Own is her favorite. She is in the finance world. One of the questions she had was, what are some of the lessons you've learned in your efforts within media and entertainment that can be applied by women in other male-dominated industries, like finance, like Madeline, you said law? When the work that you're doing, again, you just take some of the research and data. How do we apply that to other industries? How do we get their attention with some of the work that you're doing?
Right, well, it really is the same thing. It's the same phenomenon in every industry, that people can't see what is going on. And so the data is very, very important, because you may say, well, I actually met someone who said our company is 50% women.
Everyone's,
But yeah, everybody's
It's junior.
But they're all,
in the junior roles,
assistants in junior roles.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's the same phenomenon. What we really need everybody to realize is that we all have unconscious gender bias. Women too, and so then what do we do with that?
Right.
How do we counteract it? And I think the answer is usually that you have to take very proactive steps to counteract it.
Yeah.
Like I was in Australia recently, and someone was telling me about this short film festival that they have every year that's very popular, and but only about 17% of the films chosen every year for competition are directed by women. And so they're thinking, no, we've tried to make this better, but what can we do? Let's just try, for the heck of it, taking the names of the directors off the movies, 50-50.
Wow.
So, all right, you can't know who we are.
Right, right.
We're equal if you don't know
But
who
it
we
makes
are.
change. I mean, I will say there is I know in the finance world, there is a bank that now, when they're looking at their slates of candidates, remove the name from the resumes. Yeah. And that's great because
Did it impact who they...
I haven't seen any impact because I know the bank, but I think it's a step in the right direction. And clearly, when you look at the finance industry, that's the same. 50% are women, but then when you look at the women in leadership roles, it's less than 20%, right? So, I think having men in the conversation is so critically important. We can all sit up here and say, we've got to do this, we've got to do that. And it's one of the reasons why I created Luminary, but we've never excluded, and we want men part of that, right? We want them to help us and understand and work together. And so I think whatever industry you're in, it's got to be together versus everything is separate, right?
Absolutely. I often say at these kinds of gatherings, next time bring a man.
Absolutely. Bring someone that doesn't look like you.
Right, exactly. That's a great idea.
So Evelyn Infante asked, what is the biggest accomplishment the foundation has achieved so far that you are most proud of?
Yeah, I think it's really the achieving parity in kids TV. That was, one of our goals, one of our main goals, and to have it actually be fulfilled is incredible. Yeah. It's historic. It's historic. Never has happened before that we've been anywhere near parity, and
parents should be cheering that too, right? Because you look at all these, again, animated or not, it's still, you need to see it. If you can't see it, you can't be it.
Right. And we need more work on other types of diversity, obviously.
Right. Absolutely.
But at least for the female part, and also in the worlds that are being created, as I pointed out earlier, that is not at parity yet at all.
Right.
So
a lot more work to do.
A lot more work.
15 more years. I would love to, because we have such a great crowd, I would love to open it up, if that's okay, just to some questions. Cindy.
Yes. So first of all, thank you for all your work. My question for you is, you keep mentioning all these different groups, including disability. Do you also look at invisible disability? This is the thing that I advocate for on my own TV show, but are you looking at the invisible disabilities? The ones.
So we look at cognitive and physical. So when we do look at it, we look at how is the character described, and is it identified either by the dialogue, either written or based on the imagery. So we look at the whole category of it.
So not just being able to visually say somebody that.
No.
Thank you.
No. And that's because of Dr. Carolyn Heldman, who leads our research, and that's how she looks at things. So it's really to her credit that that's how we do it.
Debbie, congratulations on everything you're doing in your award. I want to go back to Thelma and Louise because it's such a classic movie and it was so ahead of its time. And I remember being young and seeing that movie and being blown away by, obviously the rape scene. Everything is so coming. They should actually put it out again. Just How much input content did you and Susan have in terms of the way women were portrayed then, which was so unusual, and the ending, which is not capitulating to the...
Right. So did you hear, she was asking about how much input Susan and I had. Well, the script was written. It was genius. She won every possible award. Her first screenplay ever, Kelly Corey. So it was really 99% there. We had a few suggestions. Susan had some really good suggestions to expand to show more how her character was experiencing this. So, but it was really all there. No, it didn't. No, in fact, Ridley said from the beginning, "I am not changing. Don't even talk to me. I'm not changing the ending to the studio. This is how it's going to end." So yeah, so we were always but he did say he had some thoughts about maybe I survive. That at the last moment she pushes me out of the car because she feels like it's her deal.
Yeah.
Pushes me out of the car and then decided against it.
You're in this together.
That would have been bad.
Take it back.
Hi. If studies have been done that prove diversity allows these movies or TV shows to make more money, why aren't filmmakers just saying, even if they don't believe in inclusivity, they just do it as a business choice?
This is a sweeping universal problem because the evidence has been in for many years that if you have more women on the board or in the C-suite, the company makes more money. Where's people saying what? Let's do that. Where the numbers are not moving. And so it's kind of everywhere that you're like, this makes so much sense. Why are you not doing it? Yeah.
It's just because it takes a long time.
Well, and it depends. You have to think about the proliferation of TV and streaming, particularly in advertising. They can move really fast, which is why you're seeing such sweeping changes, in advertising, and that's why in TV and streaming, they're able to move quicker because there's a lot more of it, and they're shooting every day. Film, it could take 15 to 22 months for one film to come out. An animated film takes 3 to 5 years. So you have to think about the cycle. Each studio maybe makes 12 films. In the old days, they used to make 24 films. They're not doing that anymore.
Wow.
So you have to really think about the process, the timeline, production, and catching it. But as we've seen with some of our data, give it another probably 2-3 years, and I think you'll start to see the rest of the diversity and inclusion numbers start to rise more dramatically. Yeah, on screen.
I want to ask, so because this kind of plays to the question, this was one from Lynn Harris. She said, when it comes to representation, I'm curious about the funny gap. Men are twice as likely as women to play the role of the funny one. And have you guys looked at or are planning to look at other media with a similar lens? Perhaps at women who are represented in sitcoms or dramedies, the female leads are funny, but the sources or objects of the jokes by the men, right?
We've never done a funny study.
Not a funny study, but we've always coded for humor. So in our Cannes Lions study, which was initially it was 12 years of advertising, 2,069 ads from all the English-speaking countries around the world, men were 4 times more likely to be funny, like have humor. And it was interesting with some of our ad agency partners, we had some of the creative teams came up to us and said, we don't get to work on the funny brands like beer, etc. So we get pushed off to some of the softer products. And so they're like, we can write funny.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know if you want to talk about, but you had an experience where you wanted to be more funny in one of your roles?
Yeah. There was a part I played where when I came on, the writers said, "Tell us if you have any thoughts." And it was a comedy, and I said, I'm kind of funny. I think I could be kind of funny. Absolutely. We'll do a pass, and 2 weeks later they showed it to me. And at the end of every scene, they had given the man another joke, or me a setting up another joke for him. It was just like the button on the end of everything. Never mind. I'll be something else instead of funny.
Yeah, Renee?
Yeah, really interesting power issue. Because you spoke about your own personal power, which gave you the original authority to do what you do, right? And I recently was involved in a survey that I created, and I asked, what is the source of your power? it was all women. And people said things, but they were older women, so maybe that's different now. Like power, I don't have any power. I never think of myself as having power. Or I don't like to exert power over another. A few women who had high-powered jobs said, I know about power, I've had that power, now I'm done with it. I don't want to have to do that anymore. So I'm really curious how you frame power, and is that an outcome in terms of some of your studies? Girl power, I think girls, as you were saying, feel they can do what they see. But do you have any other ways that you talk about it or think about it?
Right. Well, yeah, we look at, actually, this new tool, Spell Check for Bias, is very valuable because it can analyze 10,000 things, but it can tell you the status, the power hierarchy of the movie, which you might not perceive if you just read it, but so you'll find out if the women there's a lot of women, but they're in lower status as far as power goes. So we do look at that. Yeah.
And then in the advertising studies that we've done, so the first time we did it, we found that men were 89% more likely to be shown as intelligent, and they were 25% more likely to speak about power, and authority. And the female characters.
Yeah, well, the female characters much more spoke in one-syllable words, and were portrayed as not as smart as the men. Yeah. So but I think we just have to show more women in power to take away that negative connotation. I mean, people used to not want to say that they were a feminist. Well, you might, and if you say you're powerful, well, so I think we just need to show that much more, and it'll just seem normal.
Joyce.
Hi, I had a question about I saw the research at Google, which was amazing, the parity research, but then on the other side of that coin, maybe you could speak about that a little bit. The way I can't remember exactly the length, but the way the girls were portrayed in clothing that was maybe inappropriate. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, we look at not only the quantity, obviously, but the quality of the characters, and sexism is just rampant in media, including for little kids, with a lot of hypersexuality of the characters. And we found that in one of our recent studies that female characters between 13 and 39 were equally sexualized. It equally wore sexually revealing clothing, and which is horrifying. So yeah, it's definitely a two-pronged problem, because you can have half female characters and they're all in bikinis or something. So yeah.
In moving from into interventionists, as you mentioned before, are there plans or ways that the Institute can take the connections that you've made in these higher levels to help women, perhaps younger women even, who are trying to get into those positions, or are there scripts being read, or is there any connecting, networking, mentoring that is possible that are being thought about?
Well, so for the entertainment category, so all of the major content creators, studios, network streamers, all of them have directors programs, writers programs, all kinds of different mentorship programs, and they actually don't publicize it because they're not looking for publicity. But so for example, and I can't name the name of the studio, many of them who graduate from those programs then get placed on shows. And it's not just shadowing, it's just something that they don't want to kind of pat themselves on the back. So all of them have very robust, whether it's broadcast, cable, film, streaming, they all do. And that's how a lot of these people are going through, the pipeline and getting in the door that way. So they all have those programs.
Thank you. On our show, PBS Sci Girls, I want to stress two things about power in research that are really important. The first 3 seasons, our executive producer was the man, and a wonderful guy, but they made an intentional decision to change that leadership over to a woman. And I have to thank you for the research that you've been doing that has allowed us not only to create an entire season in Spanish, that was recognized by the Emmys, and our new season, which features an episode with all of the girls are deaf. And it was very much because of the research that is in the field that we convinced the National Science Foundation that this was something that we need to address. Whereas often they are like, oh, it's systemic, you can't address it. But because of the work that you've done, we've been able to use that argument to make real change in what girls see in our shows.
Rita, we haven't met, but you were my next on my list, so I'm glad you raised that, because you had submitted something. Yeah.
I'm wondering if you look at the sort of satellite industries around movies, so just thinking about, so for example, toys, were there Hunger Games bows and arrows sold, were there Ray dolls after Star Wars in the girls' aisle at, girls and boys, if you look at sort of the other products.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, we only have so much bandwidth, unfortunately. We would love to do so many other things, but once we cure this problem,
right,
we'll tackle some other stuff. But we do have to sort of hyper focus on job one. But there's so much more we want to do. But that's such a great subject to study. Is the toys, absolutely.
Yeah, Joanne.
Hi, I'm a mom of 3 boys, and when they were little, I make them watch Dora the Explorer. But now that they're getting in the teen phase, they're really into gaming, and which is full of sexualized violence, right? And I challenged one of the industry executives about it, and she proudly said, "Oh, we're addressing this because we made the boobs smaller on the female characters." So I'm wondering if there's anyone addressing this in the gaming industry.
So,
no words.
At least the boobs are smaller.
So we actually will probably be looking at gaming in the next year or so. That's all I can say at the moment, so stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Allison.
You said that you're going to be tackling sizism, and that excites me to no end. I feel like sizism is like the last bastion of prejudice when you look at social media and jokes on television, and I would just love to hear anything you have to say about it. Why is that important to you now?
Because it's part of our culture, and that's why it's really important. And we've actually always coded for it, but we've never kind of extracted and aggregated all the data that we have with it, and we think it's very important. So that's why. So stay tuned on that too.
I'm going to take 2 more. Yeah, right. Sorry, I know you can't see. You can stand up.
Hi.
Yeah.
I'm an art director at Educator Brand, and one feedback we get often is like, don't put pink in it, boys won't watch it. In your research, have you seen a correlation with color palettes in animation specifically?
So not specific to color, but so what was very interesting is years ago, the Consumer Products Division of Nick for Dora the Explorer tried to come out with a crossover, a purple backpack for boys. And it tested really well with the boys. The mothers wouldn't let their sons wear it. So you have to distinguish from the parental imprint. The kids don't give up. They don't.
Yeah.
Care. I mean, you should see the socks that her sons wear. They're like crazy colored socks. I mean, they don't care.
No, they don't care. And my proudest moment was when they were 8. I was picking them up from a sleepover, and the boys started talking about Frozen, which had just come out, and my boys both said, "That's our favorite movie." It was really because they loved Olaf, I think. Still take credit.
All right, we got time for one more question. Right here, yeah.
Hi, thanks. Emma from Farmer, and to that point, how do we, we're having this conversation in New York, you're based in LA, there's argument that middle America isn't there yet, and we're not infiltrating the mindset of parents, and we've all been, doing research in Georgia, and it's real. Parents are saying, I can't let my son wear that, or I can't let my son sit. How do we push that forward, and is there any data to support and help middle America get on board?
Well, I wouldn't criticize Middle America because all of your shows are watched by everybody all over the place. It's not East Coast, West Coast. Same thing with movies. So it's being consumed, everywhere.
I mean, consumer products, I guess, because shows are made to make, and you're supposed to use a lot, shows are made to make product. And so the shows reflect what product people are buying. Even if everyone's watching it, what are they buying?
Right. I think you just have to show it more. Like if there was also a boy on Dora the Explorer who had a purple backpack, parents would buy it because they saw that, I believe. And so I think it's just habituating people to, oh, that's normal. I say that's normal. And then it will become normal.
So thank you both so much. This was incredible. For those that are here today that haven't been familiar with the work, where can they find and learn more outside? I know we've got some collateral around the Luminary space, but where can they find you?
Well, all of our research is free, and it's on our website. We're on social media, all the platforms, IG and et cetera, not on TikTok, don't think we will be, but everything but that. So it's easy for you to follow us. Marilyn Holden is our New York Council Chair. So for those of you who want to be more active in the community, in the New York community, please reach out to Mary Ellen. And again, we also have toolkits for content creators. We have tips for parents, and everything is free on our website.
And we look forward to having you guys back once you can talk more about all the new stuff that's happening. And thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.